Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Ephraim Tripp is the owner of Tripp Travel and Transit Services, where he focuses on helping international students have great experiences while studying in the U.S., especially at rural schools. And by raise of hand, I'm curious, has anyone in this room used Tripp Travel and Transit? Look at that. Look, Ephraim, look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5. So you guys know what we were talking about. Great. Along with that, he's also working to solve rural transit challenges that many people face, creating flexible and affordable transportation solutions. With years of experience in international student recruitment, he's built partnerships with schools not only across the country, but also around the world. Ephraim has a bachelor's in international studies from BYU, Idaho, and is currently working on a master's in global education from Arizona State University. He's passionate about education, travel, and making cross-cultural connections. He speaks French, Spanish, Tahitian at various levels. We won't ask you to demonstrate, which helps him engage with people from diverse backgrounds. Most importantly, Ephraim has been happily married for 7 years and has 3 children who are his greatest motivation and the reason behind everything he does. They inspire him to keep pushing forward and creating positive change. So please welcome Ephraim Tripp.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Yes? Okay, I'm going to put all 12 mics in my pocket so that hopefully I don't ruin everything. Okay, like Russ said, my name is Ephraim. Yes, my name is Ephraim. I'm not from here. My parents are not that cruel or uncreative. I'm from Grantsville, Utah. That's where I grew up. My wife is from here. So when she says she loves Ephraim, it has 2 meanings. But I'm happy to be here. I've loved being here in this area. And I'm hoping today to share a little bit of my story and maybe some things I wish I would have known coming in, as well as tell you about a superpower that you have that you might not know about. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have maybe learned something or fallen asleep, whichever you choose. Okay, so first I just want to give a brief introduction to how I got started in doing this business called Tripp, right? Like was said, it's Tripp Travel and Transit Services, LLC. That's really long. So I do business as just Tripp, like my last name. So I'm doing trips out of Ephraim, and my name is Ephraim Tripp. So it makes a lot of sense. The way that it started, I have it up here. I didn't have much time to put everything together, but I actually started as an entrepreneurship business student back in 2017 in the freezing tundra of Rexburg, Idaho at BYU, Idaho. I started off, took 1 semester of business courses, and I said, this is not for me. Give me mechanical engineering. And then I said that wasn't for me either, and I got international relations. Never imagined that I would be starting a business, to be honest. I thought that I would just be doing international relations, traveling the world, and finding my place in that particular industry. But then when I came to Snow College in 2021 as an international student activities coordinator and later an international student recruiter, I started to notice some issues that I wanted to address and that I did try to address in a variety of ways. First, like was mentioned before, there was repeated requests for transportation. I don't know if you noticed, in Ephraim, there's no Uber, there's no Lyft, or if you've tried, it comes up with some ridiculous number to get you from here to Salt Lake. If you get on Lyft right now, it might say something between $1,100 to $1,800 to get from Ephraim to Salt Lake City, which doesn't make any sense because there's not even a Lyft driver here. So you will push that in, even if you paid for it, no one would show up and they would just reimburse you because there's no Lyft drivers. Because we're so rural. Rural transit is a real challenge. And that makes it hard for our students, right? Specifically those who don't have transportation. And since I was working with international students, that's where I saw most of the pain. Students would come in and say, is there a way to get out? Can you give me a ride? Do you know who can give me a ride? There used to be a ride share section on the Snow College app, which many of you may have used or others may not remember using. But when that went away, there was not really a way to find a ride. So it makes it tough. So after dealing with that for a couple of years and traveling the world and learning these things, I decided to take the leap. So in June of 2023, I started working with the Small Business Development Center. Has anybody seen that over at the Business Center or the Business Building? We actually have free mentoring here in Ephraim, which I had no idea at the time. You can go and get mentored by a small business development mentor who will guide you through the first process. So I built a business plan, bought a website, started putting things together, got my vehicle, and started learning about the licensing and the insurance, and it started to weigh on my shoulders because I realized just how scary it all sounded and how much money it was going to take and how much money I didn't have to make it happen, right? But nonetheless, I persevered and worked closely with Snow College and used some of my network to help me to land a contract with Snow College to start doing activities for the international students as a private entrepreneur instead of as an employee. So this was a very different endeavor. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot and was able to have some revenue and income, which allowed for me to be able to start to build the business a little bit more. Having that consistent revenue made a big difference. Otherwise, I would have kind of been stalling out pretty quickly. So that was a really big blessing for me to be able to have that first contract. So making that initial connection really kicked things off. I was grateful for that with Snow College. But since then, here we are in 2024. We've had more than 30 different student activities, traveled over 10,000 miles. We continue, we're fully registered and insured. That took a lot of work and a lot of time. There's some scary things. When you're starting a business, there's a lot of things you don't know, but the real problem are the things you don't know, right? There's just so much unknown. But as I'll repeat, the sooner you start, the sooner you'll fail, the sooner you'll learn, the sooner you'll win, right? So you have to start. That's the only way you're really going to learn. You could sit and research forever and never get started, but you won't actually learn anything until you do. And that's what I've had to do. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had times where I just wanted to throw it all in the air and drop kick it into another dimension, but I haven't. We're still going. We're still hanging strong. And actually, I just traveled with some universities recently and had some interest expressed from a couple of other states to have a similar program in their area. So in Lansing, Michigan, as well as in what's it called? Wherever Big Bend Community College is. I forget. It's in Washington, but I forget the name of the city. So we're starting to see some interest. We're starting to see some fruits happening after a year and a half of work. But I'm just getting started. I'm still learning a lot. I'm not really that far into my journey. So hopefully this will give you some hope going forward. But that's where we're at. That's how it started. And this is where we're at right now. So now I just want to talk a little bit about success and failure. I've had some success and I've had some failures. One that came to mind that I wanted to show you was when we were taking a trip to Capitol Reef National Park. I had 6 international students with me. We were going to go for a day trip, do some hiking, see some amazing sights, do the Cassidy Arch hike, and really just enjoy our day. Unfortunately, things are a little bit unpredictable on the road of entrepreneurship, as well as just on the regular road. So I had a nice flat tire. Now, I know how to change a tire. I'm not that incompetent, I promise. But unfortunately, I didn't know where the tool was to be able to pull this tire off, to get the tire lowered, the spare tire lowered, and to be able to access it and then put it on. So I was in a big pickle and I had to figure that out. Thankfully, there was some great people in the metropolis of Loa. If anyone knows where that is, there's like 10 people who live there. I pulled over to the gas station. The lady who was working there had a boyfriend who was a mechanic. He came and helped me to manually move it, lower it down, and we got it on and we were on our way after 2 hours. But we were able to get going. Sometimes you'll hit those kinds of roadblocks in your entrepreneurial journey. You're going to have successes and you're going to have flat tires. It just happens. But you have to keep going. And since then, I took it in to talk with the person that I bought it from, because they weren't available. It was late at night. Called them up and I said, "Hey, where is the tool?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just underneath the cup holder. You have to pop out the cup holder and pull it out." And I was like, why would you? Okay. But now I know, right? I have the tool and I can access it. But I had to learn. I had to make sure that I understood how it worked. I even had to take it in because the tool still wasn't working for me. It wouldn't lower. But since then, now I know that I can lower that tire and fix it. So best thing you can do is learn from your mistakes, then mitigate the risk from it happening again, and keep going. You can't just give up just because you got a flat tire. Now, this was a great experience. I got to work with the small or the business center here and actually competed in this competition that's coming up. I competed last year and was able to win $500. It's not a lot of money, but it was enough to get me kicked off and get me moving. And more importantly, it took me to the One Utah Summit down at SUU, where I was able to meet some great people, compete at a higher level. And it got me thinking more about how I wanted my business to move forward. So I would strongly encourage, and this is a little plug for Russ, right? I would strongly encourage you, if you are interested in starting a business, one of the best ways to kick yourself into gear is to have something you're working towards. It's kind of like if you want to get into shape, sign up for a race and pay for it. Now you've got some accountability. This is the same idea. Sign up for a pitch competition and say that you're going to pitch. Then you got to come up with a pitch. You got to make it coherent. You got to make it sound great. You got to be able to sell it. You have to be able to explain it backwards and forwards. That takes practice. That takes time. It takes vulnerability, asking for help, asking for feedback. And you walk away better understanding where the holes are in your business and where it's working really well. And I definitely saw them. I remember practicing the pitch many times, and I would come back and talk to my wife and say, I don't think this is going to work. I can't even explain it. I don't know if I know what I know or if I don't know anything. But I was able to go and pitch. And I was on the brink of being able to get into the finalists at the One Utah Summit. I needed to be top 8. I was number 9. So I took that as a victory, right? I won a cooler. How great is that? I got a cooler. You take your wins. And now I use that cooler for trips and different things. So you make the most of what you have. Sorry. But put yourself out there, I guess is what I'm saying. Put yourself out there. You can't succeed if you don't try, right? And what's the worst that's going to happen? If you do a pitch competition or you start a business, the worst that can happen is that you end up wherever you started without a business, right? That's the worst that can happen, really. Maybe you could lose a little bit of money if you invest a lot, but hopefully you're starting off smart and just a little at a time. That's what I did. I'm not actually a very risky person. I'm very risk averse, but I started a business nonetheless. So success and failure. Don't be afraid of failure. You can't have success without some failure. Okay. Now I really want to talk about this part of my business journey just as well as my career journey, because this is just a side gig for now. It hasn't grown to the point where I can just do this full time and hire people out to do all the driving, hire people out to do all the planning of the activities, though maybe someday that's what will happen. But my journey has been a journey of networking. Has anybody heard the word networking before? Everybody know what it is? You can shake your head no, nod your head yes, no. Regardless, I'm going to talk about it and tell you that there is no better time than now as a student to network. I will tell you why, right? This is some of my experiences that I've had in my career. I've been to Phuket over in Thailand to recruit students, in Vietnam, in India, and another 20 different countries to go and recruit students. Never would have even known that that industry existed without networking. I've been to the United Nations, their General Assembly, several sessions, meeting presidents, magistrates, and others. Wouldn't have had that opportunity without networking. I've worked in an executive office at a online institution, innovative online institution with 70,000 students from 180 different countries that provides subsidized education. You might know it as BYU Pathway Worldwide. Got to work with some amazing individuals there and have done research and led teams that actually tackled real world problems for businesses and did business research. Again, because of my network, the people I knew. I'm not actually the smartest person. I'm really not. A lot of you are probably a lot smarter than I am. But I know people because I've taken the time to get to know people. So if I were to go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, because I started college when I was 20, if I were to go back to talk to my 20-year-old self or my starting college self, here is what I would say. You're not going to get a job just because you know about international relations. That will help you in your job. You're going to get a job because you know people in the international relations industry. So let me tell you my story a little bit of how I landed the 3 internships that I did, as well as the careers that I've had. My first internship was kind of my first networking experience. It was a nonprofit organization called the Research and Business Development Center up in Rexburg, Idaho, where they did research for real businesses to help them either in their marketing strategy or to understand what was going on in their revenue or a new market they could reach out to, those kinds of things. So I led 2 teams, one for a mining company that was looking to understand whether a particular vein of vanadium, didn't know that that was a mineral at the time, whether that was going to be worth it for them to process and then sell because they had seen a big spike in the price recently. So we did research on why the spike had happened, what vanadium was used for, how the price had changed and why it changed over time, the future of vanadium and what it could mean, and whether or not how much it might cost them to process that kind of stuff because they processed a very different kind of material. And that led to a lot of great and interesting information. And more importantly, I met some great people who were able to then refer me to my next internship. So that was the first step. The next step is I wanted to get into the international relations industry, specifically to become a foreign service officer. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but essentially the United States has foreign service officers posted around the world to help with consular affairs, meaning like visas and things like that, economics, public affairs, all of those kinds of things, so that the United States is represented all over the world, and they represent the best interests of the United States. And you get to live in different places, learn different languages, and get paid to do it for different periods of time, and you get paid well. So I knew that was going to be a really good option for what I was doing, or at least a good network to start building. So I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, great place to be. I looked for foreign service officers, just typed it in there, and I started reaching out to them and said, hey, I am a BYU Idaho student and I am studying international relations. I know you're a foreign service officer, and that's something that I would be interested in doing myself. Do you have 20 minutes that I can talk to you sometime in the next week? And I'd give them a few days and times that might work for me. And you know what? Every single one of them responded to me. I was not expecting that. I met with them, and not only did they teach me about their journey, they let me into their network and said, you should talk to this person too. They know a lot about this. Or you should talk to this person. They don't do foreign service work, but they're in another part of the industry that you might consider on the commercial services side of it. Started learning things, started finding out that there were a lot of different options. And then I talked to a man named Ryan Coe. He had been a foreign service officer back in Ukraine, the Philippines, Sweden, and one other place that I forget. But since then had moved on to an Office of International and Public Affairs for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints based in New York City. Talked to him about his story, gave me some great insights, even helped me to know how to deal with having my first child because I was really nervous. My little boy was going to be born. He gave me some good advice about that. I kept, continuing to network and everything, and it came time that I needed an internship, and I wanted to get some experience in international relations this time, not just general business. So I started applying, and I applied to a job in New York City at the Office of Public and International Affairs. Now, I didn't know that Ryan Coe was working there. I only talked to him about his foreign service work, just to find out more about that journey and what he thought. I had no idea that he was working there until I got a call from him about 15 minutes after submitting my application. And he said, hey, you remember me? I'm like, yeah, you're the foreign service guy that I talked to. What's up? Like, I was not expecting to hear from you. He said, well, I just saw your application come through. What application? The one for New York. Oh, you're the hiring manager? Yeah, I'm the hiring manager. You want to come to New York? Sure, sounds great. So right then and there, I was able to go to New York City, spend 6 months working in New York City with the United Nations and working with consul generals and other world leaders and have an amazing experience. But it wasn't necessarily because my resume stood out drastically from everybody else. It's because he'd already talked to me. He'd heard my goals. He'd heard my interests. It's a lot easier to hire somebody when you know them even a little bit. That helps a lot. So, landed that internship. After that, I was able to work with BYU Pathway Worldwide. That came from a connection from BYU Idaho. One of my international relations professors referred me to this as an opportunity because he knew I was interested in education for refugees at the time. That's what I was studying for my capstone project. And he said, I saw this opportunity. BYU Pathway is a great option for sustainable or for scalable and affordable and accessible education. Maybe you could talk to them and see if they have an opportunity. And I was able to work in their executive office intern, as their executive office intern for about 6 months, and then get a part-time job to finish out my schooling. Right? And it just continues. I've networked then to get into Snow College to work as the international student recruiter. I've networked to then work as a a partnership manager for Simple Ed student recruitment tours based out of India from people that I met while I was traveling. And then I networked again to land another part-time job that I have right now while running this business. All of that to say, networking is powerful. And here's why it's so powerful for you right now. Think about it from the perspective of the person that you're talking to. When you're talking to someone who has a career, a long-term career that they've had for a while, and they hear from a student who's just getting started, in their mind they say, oh, poor guy, they're just getting started. They're a poor student. They're just trying to figure things out. I ought to help them out, right? If I reach out and I'm just, some random guy, like, who are you? What do you want from me? But not from you as students, not from you. They see that you're a student. They see that you're interested. They see that you just want to chat for 20 minutes. I promise if you ask for 20 minutes, they'll typically give you an hour of your time and someone else to talk to. That's your superpower as a student. Pity, right? They feel pity for you. You're a poor student that's just figuring things out. But they also want to help because they've been there. So use that to your advantage. Here's my recommendation, because that sounds really scary. But let's break it down. If you do one networking outreach per month, and you have a 4-year degree, a lot of you maybe are just getting started. If you're just getting started, and you have 4 years ahead of you, one per month. Anyone can do the math. How many people would you know by the end if you only met one person per month, which won't happen if you do it this way? 48. That's 48 more people in your network than you would have had. And that's one person per month, 20 minutes per month of your time. Adding in the time of communication and maybe the extra time they give you. Maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. What's an hour and a half in a month? That's nothing, especially for the impact it will have on your ability to get internships while you're in school and to get your career after school, right? So that's my challenge to you, of which what I wish I would have done better is consistently do those outreaches, right? One per month, set that goal. If that's too low for you or even too high, find something, but you have to network, especially as a business student. Okay, summing it all up shortly, know your resources and use them. What helped me to be successful was not because I knew how to run a business, but because I knew who knew how to run a business, and I talked to them a lot. So know what your resources are. The Small Business Development Center, the Grit Center here, right? Your fellow students to talk to, your business professors, people within the industry that you're interested in. Use those resources. The second point, I know it's really long, but the sooner you start, the sooner you'll fail, the sooner you'll learn, the sooner you'll win, right? You have to start. That's the thing about business. You can think about your business as long as you want. I thought about this business idea for about 2.5 years before I actually took any action on my own. And nothing happened because I was just thinking about it. But since then, as I've taken action, even small ones, consistently over time, it adds up quickly. So take action, take a step towards your goals. And finally, use your student superpower for networking. I promise if you do, that's where you'll meet the people who will guide your career. You might meet a mentor. You might meet someone who says, I want to help you. I want to mentor you. I don't want to just meet for 1 hour. I want to meet every month. I want to hear about how you're doing. I want to set goals with you. That happens. And it could happen to you, but you have to start talking to people. So use that student superpower and find the people in your industry that you're interested to talk to, because they'll be interested to talk to you too. They love seeing the future. It's exciting for me to see you guys and think about that I was there about 8 years ago, sitting in your seat right before I stopped doing entrepreneurship and then came back 6 years later. So those are the 3 things that I would hope that you remember from this. I really appreciate your time letting me come and talk to you all, and I hope that this class continues to help you. If you do ever have any questions, I have like my website that you can go to that has my contact info, or my Instagram. Feel free to reach out. It doesn't have to be about needing a ride. You can ask any questions about my journey, or if I know somebody, I'd be happy to share and talk with you all. Good luck to you all, and thank you. I do. Russ has just said that if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have, or comments, judgments, jokes, or recipes. Those are also acceptable. Yeah.
I liked your idea of like networking off of LinkedIn and like just getting connected to people. So let's say I want to get like a marketing internship with Nike in the future. So like how would I actually find someone who works at Nike in the marketing department? Do I just type in like Nike or and
That's what I would do. Start by finding people in your network first. Start building a marketing. If it were me, right? I'm not like the perfect expert, but if it were me, I would start by looking up people who are in marketing, just in the industry, and start to get to know people. Because the more people you know, the better. But then, yes, specifically target market Nike. But remember, when you're talking to somebody that you want to work with, or a place that you want to work with, you don't get on there and say, hey, do you have any internships available? Or do you know when a job might be available? Or would you keep me updated on this? They hear that all the time. It's Nike. Everyone wants to work at Nike, right? It's a big company. But if you come in and say, hey, wow, like I admire the marketing that Nike does. It is incredible. I follow it. I analyze it. I consider how it impacts me and others around me. And I want to understand how you do it, or how you got there. What were your steps? What was your journey? You have 20 minutes that I can just learn from you as a student, right? That might be something that I say in my email. And then I would give them a few days and times that would work for me. So it might not, I guess I don't know if I got lucky in my industry. You might not have that same luck. So don't be too sad if you don't hear back from people immediately, right? It's going to take some work. It's going to take some time, but you got to try. You got to try. Put in some time and effort to that. Good question. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Just adding on to that, if you come talk to me and tell me you want to do an internship at Nike in marketing, I happen to work with somebody who worked at Nike in marketing. But you have to come talk to me so I get to know you, so I'm willing to make that introduction for you. That's kind of how this works. It's what Ephraim is saying is exactly right. So you start with people you know, but you have to actually talk to them. You say, this is what I want to do. And they go, oh, tell me about you. Do I want to help you out? Sure, of course I do. But I want to help students that are going to do the work, not the ones that are never going to show up or come back. Or if I make an introduction, if you never respond to it, that just kind of hurt my relationship by saying, hey, this guy is going to talk to you about Nike, and then you're like, oh yeah, I got busy. I never followed up on it, I'm not going to be as likely to want to help you in the future. So you have to really do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, definitely. Did everybody hear that? Okay, perfect. Just remember too, like I said, use your resources. Russ is a great resource. He knows everybody. Underneath that blue blazer jacket, he has a lot. He has a lot to share. Please talk to Russ. He's got lots of experience and lots of connections with people. He's been a lot of places. So, yeah.
I was just curious for you, how have you been able to find a balance between being open to taking new opportunities while still managing or following kind of a direct course to pursue like a goal or anything?
Good question. Yeah, no, and that's a real challenge for business owners because you'll have opportunities that pop up right out of the blue that you kind of have to say, oh, okay, am I going to divert some of my time and resources to that? And I think it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, does it align with my long-term goals? Right? Is this going to help me reach my long-term goal, or is it just a shiny rock, right? That might be fun for a minute, but it's not actually going to help me in my long-term goals. If it's not going to help me, then it's not worth my time. Even if it is a neat opportunity, if it's not aligned with what I'm looking to do, then I can wait. Because guess what? Opportunities will keep popping up if you keep going, right? That's what's great about moving forward, is there will always be an opportunity that appears. The other thing to consider is just also your bandwidth. I'll tell you about my situation. Currently, like I've kind of mentioned earlier, I have a part-time job to help cover the bills. I'm doing my business, and I'm doing my master's degree. So I have tons of extra time on my hands, right? I have to be very careful about what I choose to do. But when there is an opportunity and I see that it could either help build my network or connect me with the right person or help move my business in the right direction, that's what I do. But I have to have that clear vision. That's kind of the first step, is understanding, okay, what's my vision? What's my next step? What's my next goal? What's going to make the biggest impact? Does that answer your question? Perfect. Great question. That's a tough one when you're a business owner. Chasing shiny objects. Any other questions? I was really hoping for recipes. So please share them with me after. Okay, I think that's everything. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it.